Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about something that kind of lights me up. It's something I've talked about for decades, which is, NLP for like a prosperity mindset, how to change your mindset. And it kind of goes back to the current group of people that are leaders in that manifesting prosperity, Neville Goddard, Napoleon Hill with Think and Grow Rich. Neville Goddard was Think from the End and Feeling is the Secret. I mean, the list goes on and on. They all kind of say the same thing in slightly different ways, which is great information. Even going up into we get into motivational speakers, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Joe Dispenza, great stuff. But many times they give you the motivation, they give you an outline, but they don't show you how to do it. Right. And it's not, I'm not saying it's like just marketing. Well, take my stuff, then I'll do it. It's just, go back to Napoleon Hill and that, think the greatest, I think he wrote The Greatest Secret too. But it was all about how you think and this and that, Richest Man in Babylon, all these books. And it's kind of cool about how you think, but what stops us from thinking the way we want to think? That would be, to me, a big question, right? Because it's easy to say, think from the end, get the feeling of your wish fulfilled and see it from the back. This is Neville Goddard's kind of thinking, right? Well, what stops us generally, and this is what I'll put out, is fear. And what fear does is it makes you make the worst decisions possible, right? Because when you're making a decision based on fear, it's never going to go well. Heard another person talk about an example would be, she was watching an interview with Jeff Bezos, right? And he was saying that his goal is every day he wants his employees to wake up terrified. That's why he'll shut down a distribution center, if they, whatever, he wants them terrified. Because in his mind, if you're terrified, you're more productive because you're operating on that nervous energy, right? It can motivate you in some ways. It's not good long term, right? And it'll probably kill you, but not to be too brutal, I don't think they care. But look at our culture, our world, in fact, because we got people from all over the world here. It's being driven by a fear-based mentality. And then what happens, it becomes your default. You're always afraid. It's that you're afraid of whatever, right? And then you're always set in that nervous, anxious feeling, right? Which leads to the disease of more. The disease of more. You want more. Okay, I'll feel better. This fear will go away when I have more money, right? This fear will go away when I'm absolutely convinced, the certainty that my significant other will never leave me and all this other stuff, right? And it once it gets installed, it's really hard to get rid of. There was a movie called All the Money in the World. It was about J. Paul Getty, and based on a book. And somebody's interviewing him, and he points out to the guy that you're the richest man in the history of the world at that moment. And he just asks him, some people might think, well, when are you going to be happy? What's it going to take? And he leans in and goes, more. Right? He had wealth for the whole world. And do we not see that now? Because some people especially people get in the helping professions that want to help people and this and that, it's like, when's enough, right? Well, you're taking your thinking into people that don't have that thought process, right? So it's the disease of more, right? Which leads to this fear, and I remember reading back in the 90s, they were studying why do humans kill themselves more than any, some of the higher species do kill themselves, dolphins and whales will beach themselves. And I'm not just when their radar gets messed up. And other animals may, but it's an outlier. But humans do it all the time. Why would you do that? right? And it boils down to language, what we say to ourselves, the pictures we paint, what stories are we telling, right? And it, so it becomes your story for the future. I've gone through this bad thing. I went through a bankruptcy, or, my wife, husband, whatever it is, ripped my heart out. So you paint that into the future. Well, I can never trust anyone ever again. I tried to start a business, it failed. I'll never start another business, right? And it leads to a bleak outlook into the future, right? And if it gets bleak enough, the future is so dark, you decide to end it now, right? And I mean, it just, it happens all the time. We still have the epidemic, even though now they're being quiet about it again. Where here in the United States, between 18 and 24 veterans kill themselves every day, right? Especially and not just the veterans of the recent wars. It goes back, the few Korean veterans that are still alive in Vietnam, and that. And it's not just American veterans, it's the veterans of, and I know Britain has the problem, France has that problem when they were deploying to Afghanistan and Iraq, some of the things like this. Because of what happened in the past, you lose all faith in humanity. And you'll just end up, doing that, right? So if you paint, it's the stories we tell ourselves. In the NLP and hypnosis world, we've been saying that forever. What stories are you doing? Change your story, change your life. I got to do my anchoring. As our dear friend Tony Robbins would say, right, is change your story, change your life, right? But what is your story? Because what happens if you have these fears going on, like the Bezos or the J. Paul Getty, where you're always terrified, right? It leads to you wanting to control everything, right? You want to control everything. You're going to set it, because once I get control, then I won't be afraid. When, even though intellectually, if you pull back, as a friend of mine once said, it's a recovery statement. He goes, if I really thought about the shit I could control, I would be depressed all the time. This was up north. The steel mill could close. My wife could decide to leave me. I could get a terminal illness. I can't control that, but we try to, which leads to more fear, because the things you're trying to control doesn't work, right? And that's the driver of all this stuff, if that makes sense, right? So you're trying to control, and you see it with, and I know I've been there. It's like with kids. Parents try to micro control their kids. No, I was talking to somebody. They go, no, I'm very laid off. I want my kid to be successful, and this, that. And you start talking, yeah, as long as they get in the right preschool, go to the right school, get in the right college, I want them to be, accepted to Yale or Harvard by their 17th birthday. It's like, can you control that, right? But then again, those kids, when this is being installed in their heads, you got to go. We're seeing it now, where the epidemic of people here in America thinking they got to have a college degree, right? When all the metrics, all the data says you've got if you're young, let's say coming out of high school now, go to college or become a tradesman, electrician, a plumber, like my nephew makes over 200 and something thousand a year as a diesel mechanic, right? But it's that fear, right, that we get, And again, the parents may be driving the fear of, what would my friends say if my son or daughter, didn't go to college and did whatever, right? So it's that fear that drives it, right? And when I say this and we start talking about it, it also leads to, then sometimes I was doing this talk a few years ago. Somebody said, but there are some things you need, it's threats. There's things in the world you need to be afraid of. If my friend was on this call right now, who spent 30 years in the military and then a whole bunch of years as a consultant of the military, he'll always talk about these threats, right? So that you should be afraid. Well, then the question is, if you had a TBI, if you got a traumatic brain injury, right? You got a car wreck or get hit in the head or explosion goes off next to your head. So you got a TBI and you're going to be rolled into the emergency room, right? And then the surgeons comes in, the neurosurgeons comes in. Do you want your surgeons to be in a highly anxious, fearful state? Or do you want them calm and creative, right? Because that's where the magic happens, is when you're calm and creative. You get the answers, you get this, you get that. If you're nervous, you're anxious, and I'm not just talking about anything. And in my other profession, right, acting, they always say that, you know, the number one goal is to be relaxed, calm, and focused, not anxious, you know, which is easy to say till they yell action, or you walk into the auditioning room. Maria's heard this story from people. I was really calm till I walked in, you know. And but if you relax, and 90%, I was talking to a casting director, said, I'll cast someone that just appears calm and focused over somebody that maybe do a little bit better job, but you can just see they're like, they may explode. So, and what happens is with this, it leads to the fact you quit listening to your body, okay? You start thinking with your head. And I know when I've blown auditions or performances, it's because I'm in my head. You know, if I've learned, you know, as they say in this profession, if I know the text and I know my blocking and my body feels comfortable with it, just do it. But if I get out of my body and start thinking with my head, bad things are going to happen. And that's the whole thing of the new trauma therapy, where the body keeps the score. You know, you can think you're over it, but the body keeps the score. So this leads to, how do you make decisions? So if you have this fear-based thing going on, you know, how do you make decisions? Well, the thing to always remember about a decision, life is pretty simple, but it's not easy. I love that statement. Life is simple, but it's not easy. I've heard it in the 12-step world, heard it everywhere. Program simple, but it's not easy, right? Because it's about the choices that you make. Before you make a decision, you have certain choices that are going on, right? And so these choices and these decisions, as we know, as people in the hypnosis, NLP, or the metaphysical world, you have your conscious mind, which will think one way, but your subconscious mind will think the other way, right? But the decisions and if you can remove the idea of whether it's good or bad, the choices you make or the decision, you know, and that's what's going to give you action, right? That's what's going to give you the action. And so most of us don't get the idea implanted in our heads when we're young about the choices lead to decisions leads to action, is when you're going to make that first choice, does it move you toward your goal or away from your goal? Right? Just that simple double check, right? Your clock goes off at 6 a.m. because you set it early because you're going to go to the gym. Your first choice is to hit the snooze or not hit the snooze, or to get up or not get up, right? So you go exercise, right? And then the first choice is, okay, I'm going to get up. Then the decision is to go work out, right? So does it move you toward who you want to be, right? I'm going to eat healthy. Yeah, but I'm kind of hungry. I'm in a hurry. I'll just whip through some kind of fast food, you know, get some crappy food. That's why I'm jealous of Patrick with the French food that they have all the time. But, or Italian, real Italian, you know. So James Clear, I think is his name. He always says every choice and every decision is a vote for who you want to be in the future. You make a choice or a decision to not get up early and go to the gym or go for a walk, or you're hungry and it's like, well, I could whip in, you know, some kind of fast food joint and get food quickly, or I could make the choice to like go to the grocery store and get something kind of healthy, right? Take a little bit longer. Well, that's a vote. Whichever way you make the decision, it's a vote. Do I want to do this or I want to do that? And as we all know in the hypnosis NLP world, and it is your subconscious always listening. Well, he says up here in his prefrontal cortex, he wants to get in shape and work out. But his midbrain goes, yeah, I'm going to sleep in and just eat a bagel on the way to work, right? So your brain's going, well, what's really important to him, you know, is making the decisions that don't move you toward your action. So, what decisions are you making? Is it moving you toward or away from what you want? Anybody here ever get into, I think they call it doom scrolling, right? Where you start looking at a TikTok video or Instagram. I'm calling you out, Bruce. Next thing you know, you're 40 minutes into it, right? And it's like, well, you could go and write a blog. Note to self, I need to do that. Write a blog, call someone, take a risk, so does that decision move you forward? But, and one of my favorite sayings is, a couple of them was, you're not, especially for a lot of the things we do for the instant gratification, it's not that you're lazy, it's you're trying to get away from pain, right? If you start doom scrolling or, I'm going to go mindlessly eat, it's escaping from some kind of pain, right? So by getting away from the negative, right? And it's that immediate gratification that animals like. All humans are animals, so we like that immediate gratification, right? And so you'll surrender your future to feel better in the now. It's the best example of an addiction explanation I ever heard in my life. I know if I drink, it's going to make my life shit, but I'll feel better right now. I'll worry about the repercussions in the future, And again, it's not, I use addictions because I'm good. It's my other world. It's not about the drinking, the drugs, the sex, the gambling, the doom scrolling, whatever you're addicted to, right? It's about the feelings you're trying to escape, right? And so, we surrender our future because we'll make, I forget who said it first. Jim Rohn, you can live life hard now and easy later, or easy now and hard later. Going to the gym may be hard, right? Going and eating right may be a little bit hard, but later on, maybe your joints won't hurt as much. Maybe you'll do this, maybe you'll do that, right? And as Jim Rohn, I love throwing quotes in. Jim Rohn always said, you have a choice. Here's your options, right? Here's your action. You can experience the pain of discipline, making yourself get up and go do what you got to do, or you can experience the pain of regret. That's it. Either do it, and if you don't do it, then you may feel regret, especially if you could have made a better choice, right? And so, that's how fear drives if there's a fear going on, not enough, not good enough, all this can go back, not to sound psychological, but it could go back to your childhood where, hey, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not whatever it is. And then you start being fearful and it motivates you in a different way, and mainly to escape from those feelings. Right? And so you have to work through those, right? And go to that. And I'm going to close with, let's say you decide, tomorrow I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. And go to the gym. And so you set your alarm, right? Now, when that alarm goes off, you have, I think the research says 3 to 7 seconds to take an action. That's it. If you do not take the action, you will default back to that comfort zone. Oh, the bed's warm. It's a little chilly today. I'll do it tomorrow, right? And this is true for everything, right? When you decide to do something, you have 3 to 7 seconds. One person says, I think it's Mel Robbins says 5, to take an action or not take an action, right? And I teach that in the addiction world where you get a craving or a desire to drink, drug, whatever it is. If you can hold it off for that 7 seconds, many times that idea will pass, right? But when it comes to doing something, you have that, you're in a seminar, workshop. I wish more people did it. I try to remind myself. And you get all this cool information, right? That you're going to implement. If you do something right when you're doing it, you're much more likely to follow through. How many of us ever gone to a seminar, workshop, right? And you got all this wonderful info and you're like, this is so cool. I'm going to do this. And you get home, you put it here. And then 6 months later, you're going, oh yeah, I was going to do that. You know, and then you don't remember what it is. But if you take action, you know, I know a guy who was teaching a different aspect of NLP. I won't go down that path, but it's pretty funny. But he goes, you know, if you're in a club and you see someone you want to approach, and he would say that you got like just a few seconds to get your ass up and go and say hi. Because if not, you're going to start, oh, they're going to reject me. They're going to make fun of me. What are all my friends going to think? If I walk over, you know, and part of his whole thing about, you know, being successful in that world is just taking the action. You know, same with like sales, ask for the sale. You know, when you get that feeling like maybe I should ask for the sale, ask for the sale, right? So again, it's that motive, it's called activation energy, right? And I read it's 3 to 7 seconds with the, you know, about 5 being good. To take an action or not take an action. You know, Wendy's would be good right now. And there's a Wendy's, right? But I got a good, you know, I cooked the dinner, it's sitting on the stove at home, right? So if I don't hit the turn signal, whip into the fast food joint, I'm much more likely to be successful, right? So that's how fear, you know, which is it's neither right nor wrong, it got in your head by parenting, teachers, right? Teachers can install fear, right? With our competitive natures. And then it leads to making the choices in the not, you know, surrendering your future for the pleasure in the now. So that's just a little bit on how fear can drive your decisions that will not be very not motivating, but useful later on. Does it lead to what you want to be or not? And every decision, every choice is a vote for who you want to be in the future. So, and I'm starting a new YouTube channel, right? It's an NLP Prosperity Mindset, working on it now. It's going to be up. So, you know, I'll send it out, tell people about it, where it'll be this, that, and the other thing about NLP and all the stuff based on the leaders, again, the Neville Goddard, Napoleon Hill, Deepak Chopra, Dispenza, Tony Robbins, right? But also just not saying, okay, this is what it is, how to see from the end, how to do this. We'll give some actionable steps. And today's actionable step would be to take action. If you get the inclination, you know, as my dear friend Joe Vitale, who wrote the foreword to one of my books, says, that's inspiration. When you get the inspiration, you have to take action, right? Or it will go, God will give it to someone else who will do it, right? So anyway, it'll be NLP Prosperity Mindset. I'll probably get a website up, but it'll be a YouTube channel, a Facebook group I plan on starting, same kind of thing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you tell everybody about it. And since this will be up when it's going on, what do they say? Click the subscribe button now. Make sure you get on it and have some fun.